All right, we're back. So let's talk about the situation. One, 100% disabled veteran, 15 years United States Army, got out as a CW3. The spouse, flight attendant with Delta Airlines, and about 19 months ago, their Chapter 7 bankruptcy was discharged, right? He's a postal worker as well. So had income coming in. But what happened 4 years ago is a story. But before we go there, let's talk about lender overlays. So you all know, pretty much any company you work at, the gospel is if you file Chapter 7, you got to wait at least 2 years before you can buy a home after 2 years after the discharge date. And if you file Chapter 11, Chapter 13, you can pretty much do it immediately as long as you have permission from the guarantor, right? And that's what everybody preaches. I mean, shoot, for the longest time, that's what I thought it was because that's what I was taught, and I really didn't look into it. However, we were introduced to this couple by a friend of mine, a leader in the industry. I don't want to say he or she, but basically works at another company, very, very good at what they do. They couldn't help. They reached out and said, Jay, we got a person here. How tight are you on bankruptcy overlays? And I was like, well, we technically don't have any additional overlays here at Cross Country. We literally underwrite to agency guidelines, execute agency guidelines. So I said, tell me the story, what's going on? She's like, well, this is the person. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll reach out to him. So I called Don. I said, hey, Bubba, what's going on? Thank you for your service. I'm a fellow Army combat retired veteran as well. And he had served in Desert Storm, like I said, as a military intelligence chief. And he's like, all right, this is what happened. So their story, right? Basically, one day, his wife, she was on her way to work, and in the same day suffered a stroke and an aneurysm within hours of each other. Literally should have died, but didn't. Basically, fast forward till about 19 months ago, they had racked up almost $750,000 in debt and medical bills, and it was basically suffocating him because obviously the wife couldn't work, right? She was in rehab, recovery. He was limited on what he could do at the Postal Service because he had to take care of his wife. And to top it all off, the wife's mother passed as well, so he had to basically make arrangements for all of that and deal with all that. So they filed bankruptcy, and immediately upon filing bankruptcy, it's clear he goes to work on rebuilding his credit. He's able to buy a car, and he started this thing called the Kickstart program for credit. I had never heard of it before, but basically what it is, it's a forced savings account. You agree to an X amount of dollars per month, minimum payment of like $35 or $40 for 1 year. That money goes into an account, and this company then reports that as like a revolving credit line and reports as a revolving credit line to the credit bureaus. And at the end of 12 months, you can withdraw the amount minus the fees for what they do, and you'll have repaired credit. I was like, holy cow, right? So we dive in, we take a look at the FICO or look at the credit report, and because it's got the BK on there in less than 2 years, it's an automatic manual underwrite. So we dive into the guidelines, and technically the VA guidelines do not say that you have to wait 2 years for a Chapter 7. What they actually say is that it's very difficult to determine credit worthiness within 2 years. However, if circumstances were beyond the veteran's control, and they've established a positive credit history, you can underwrite the loan. So that's what we went with, right? That was the story, of what caused their bankruptcy. I mean, let's be honest, they weren't exactly planning on his wife to have a stroke and aneurysm in the same day, right? So now we got to put the loan together, right? So because it's a manual underwrite, think about it. When you're doing a manual underwrite, biggest thing is compensating factors. Now, what he had going for him is, one, he was back full-time with the post office. He had his VA disability. He's 100% VA disabled, right? So he's got that income coming in. His wife is actually on SSI, so has been on it for over a year, and it looks like that's going to be a lifetime deal. So you have that income coming in. And not only did he rebuild his credit and was paying on time, the house that they ended up purchasing is the same house that they've been renting for the last 5 years. So we had a perfect, literally 5 year history of VOR, right? So those, verification rent, right? On time, perfect for 5 years. And he had assets, had about 25K in assets that he had slowly built up. So we had all these positive compensating factors. DTI was a little bit higher than where we wanted to see at. It was at 56%, but residual was well over 120%. So we were golden there. So I go to the head of VA underwriting for us, Andre Crittenden. Great dude. I've known him pretty much my whole career. We used to work at Veterans United together back when I first got started, and he's one of the best people I've ever, been able to talk to. He's a common sense senior underwriter, chief, right? We pulled up the guidelines, showed him what we put together, had the LOXs, and he was like, yeah, I believe we can do this, right? And, as long as, nothing goes sideways, because you can only control what you can control. He goes, yeah, we should be able to do this loan. They assign it to an underwriter that does a lot of my VA loans. I have a lot of trust and faith in her as well. Backfilled her on the story. And, I'll be honest, the story about the veteran, we are so passionate about helping veterans. It's not just another loan for us. It's, it goes to our core, which is I believe that every veteran should own a piece of what they've helped defend, right? That's the American dream. So, and this one just gave me a little bit more motivation just because, damn, they had to survive a lot, right? And he was doing all the great things. So, fast forward, we're talking to the client and saying, look, I want to give you proper expectation management. It looks like we can do this loan. I'm 98% certain that we can actually do this. However, this is what we're going to need from you. If I ask for something, I'm going to need it no questions asked, and I'm going to need it timely, right? Now, granted, we started this in August. The only reason we closed it in November is because the owner of the property did not want to sell the home before October 31st. So this was going to be a November close anyway, but it gave us time to, one, because it's been 19 months, it gave him an extra couple months before for seasoning, just to give it a little bit more merit, and to show that he continues to make his payments on time and that his credit was going solid. And then for him to continue to build up the coffers. Submitted it in for the manual underwrite for conditional approval, like what we normally do for pre-approvals. And we got the conditional approval. Conditions were actually pretty normal. So he got us, I said, hey, go get us that executed, purchase contract from, and then keep in mind, they did this whole thing, just them, the buyer and the seller of the property, no realtors involved as well, which was awesome. So got that. As soon as we got it, ordered appraisal right away, and literally from start to close after, because I believe we submitted this into processing for escrow. I want to say like the last week of October, right? So it was like a 21-day close, right? So now, granted, through all this time, part of our job, it's more than just taking the paperwork and, doing the loan stuff. I always say people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's one of the things that if I can impress upon you within the veteran community, that is undoubtedly probably 1,000% more accurate than any other client that you will work with, right? Myself as a veteran, anytime I bought something of major importance before I got into the industry, and I still wear the high and tight, right? Just got the haircut today. People would see that and be like, you could almost feel that commission breath or the thought they're like, just the way you're treated. So I never wanted my veterans to feel that way. I wanted them to know that they had a safe space. I was going to work my tail off. My team's going to work their tail off. And ultimately, we're going to help them get into a home. Fast forward, got the CTC literally on Monday. That would have been the 4th, right? Because election day was the 5th. The 4th. And then it was just scheduling with closing and, title and escrow for Georgia and the closing attorney for signing. And of course, with the clients. And they were like, yeah, we can sign on Friday. And so that was the day that was set. So again, what won this deal was going back through the VA guidelines, not just accepting what everybody says can't be done, right? Taking those extra steps, run it up the chain to our head of VA underwriting. And that's what I'm going to encourage you to do as well. You know, anytime that you have a deal that you think it sounds good and it meets all the metrics, you're like, this should be a good deal. On paper, it looks good. It makes sense. And you put together the loan story. Because remember, you're painting a picture for the underwriter, right? They got to see everything. Do yourself a favor. Reach out to your head of underwriting, right? I'm going to go one better. I get deals done, period. I'm not saying you have to give me your deal, but if you need help, shit, give me a call, 808-798-9054, right? I don't need to say it again because it's pretty much everywhere plastered on everywhere I do social media. Reach out. We're more than willing to help, right? Because ultimately you're helping a veteran, a fellow veteran, own a piece of what they helped defend. So hopefully this was good info for you. Again, love to hear from you. What kind of stories you guys have got? What kind of deals you think you can't get done and need some help? That's what we're here for. Make a great day, and we'll see you again next week. Aloha.